these like roadblocks kept popping up to be like, no, like don't go on this trip, don't go. And I was so stubborn and bullheaded that I was like, no, of course I'm going. You know, I was a 24-year-old girl that loved to party. And I was like, I'm going for New Year's. And like, you know, it's going to be such a story. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, and it was the worst trip ever. Worst international trip I've ever taken. Worst holiday I've ever had. Hands down. Yeah.
You're listening to Natural AF, the podcast exposing suppressed truths about health, reality, and human potential. I'm your host, Isaac. I'm the founder of Natural Art Form, and I'm joined by my Australian co-host and partner, Alexa, a Site K facilitator and human design coach. If you're ready to challenge the status quo and explore how the world really works while staying grounded in your deepest purpose, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining us. Let's get Natural AF. Well, hello, folks. Welcome back. Welcome back to Natural AF. And got my lovely co-host here, Alexa.
Hey, guys.
So this is going to be a mano episode. But before we get into the content for this week, we wanted to bounce back to a couple other episodes and share some thoughts, some notes. For those of you that listened a couple weeks ago, Alexa's uncle had passed, and that was, fresh off the back of that.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that reached out and sent their condolences. It was very much appreciated and very touching. And the funeral's done now, and it's been a really hectic last few weeks. There's been a lot going on. We've had a birth and a death in the family in the space of a month, which is pretty wild, but also a beautiful reminder of just the natural cycle of life. Like that's what we have to deal with. There's new life, there's death, there's rebirth. So it's been an interesting time. I just made a very short post on Instagram the other day because I haven't really been online much with everything going on. If anyone wants to check out that post, I won't rehash the whole thing now, but I just kind of shared some of my reflections and it's just been a very introspective time for me at the moment. So there's definitely a lot of new beginnings that are happening now. So very grateful for that. And again, thank you to everyone that reached out. It was very beautiful.
Yeah. It's just a reminder, everything works in a divine time, and, the world is going through a bit of a flux, and I get it. A lot of the stuff, like currently the war that's going on or, has been fought, being driven by AI and all this stuff. Like, it's pretty crazy. And it's just a good time to remember, like, the things that actually matter, keeping your family close if you can. If you're fortunate enough to have a family that is on speaking terms and can support each other, just, work to build those connections, reach out. And it's a good reminder for all of us, me included, to just give the folks a ring and say, how you doing? And tell everybody that you love them and miss them if you haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah. As for last week's episode, we wanted to debrief a little bit, and also we have to fact check ourselves because I did bring up, this is our interview with Sophia, our friend from Raw Milk and Honey. Their whole family is so beautiful. If you haven't listened to the episode yet, go back and check it out. And I brought up a video that Sophia had posted, birthing her placenta. It's actually birthing the second twin. It's actually the full video, and I actually hadn't watched the whole video last time because I just saw the text on screen said, when I thought I was birthing my placenta or something, and it was a twin, because as we talked about.
That's a funny shaped placenta. It's got legs and a head.
It's got eyes. Yeah. It's a very surprising experience for them because she went completely natural throughout her pregnancy and didn't have any scans and didn't have any checkups and just completely trusted her body. And when she gave birth, surprise, they had twins. So spoiler alert, but we talked a lot about that. And I just wanted to fact check because, she actually did post the video of her giving birth to the second baby. So it's very, I've got to say, and we talked about this, it's very confronting, but I actually went back and watched the full video, and I've got to say, I actually love that they posted it because it just goes to show how normal that process can be. When I say normal, like, it doesn't have to be this chaotic, like that's often what we see in movies and things when childbirth is depicted in hospitals, that it's like very chaotic and there's a lot going, and it is because there's doctors and nurses and like lots going on in a lot of cases, not every case. And just watching that and the way that her husband was, just the way they were like communicating with each other, and he just caught the baby, and I was just watching it like, it just looked like a regular old day in their house. Like, it was really cool to see. It can be confronting to watch things like that, but I think it ultimately does serve a good purpose. Her intention behind it was to help people because she's seen videos like that really helped her. And I can definitely see how that is very useful for people to see if they've never experienced it and maybe want to see, have a deeper insight into what it's like to birth at home and free birth.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of something somebody told me one time. It's like every time a woman gives birth, she can almost imagine what it feels like for when a man stubs his toe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Our physiologies are definitely very different.
Pain thresholds are very different.
Maybe.
But I think in different ways. Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, in different ways, because I've seen the way that you can push yourself. You have a lot of endurance when it comes to just physical exertion, in terms of, the ruck marches you used to do in the army
or even just getting, because my hands have been nicked and cut and bleeding and I'm still I'm handling stuff. I'm putting on Alleviate with the magnesium. My hands are stinging and I'm just, I registers it, but I rarely ever say anything about it. I'm just
yeah. And carrying those, just posted that video of you carrying literally tree logs, huge, heavy
it's very
things.
normal for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll just do that or you'll just work into the evening or work for hours on end, with physical labor. But I think when it comes to illness, I think that's where, again, not always, but I don't know, men tend to have a bit of a lower pain threshold there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it physically it just wipes me out. If I'm getting the flu, if it's really bad, it'll be bad. I'm on the bed for days. If it's, there's other kinds where I'm just sick for 24 hours and I'm fine and I'll work through it. But
which I think makes sense for you because you don't get sick often. And so when you do, you're kind of knocked on your ass.
Yeah. When I came to Australia, that was the first time I'd been sick in probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was talking about that flu that you got, that you were, that was, you were, But I always think it's just a sign. Your body's just giving you a sign that you have to rest, especially when you haven't been sick for 5 years and you do as much as you do.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows what's really going on with flus though? It's part spiritual, part physical detox, potentially.
Yeah.
Part poisoning. Who knows?
So many different theories on that.
Yeah, probably all the energy drinks I used to drink, just working their way out of my system. And maybe sometimes still drink every now and then. So before we move on from all this, I wanted to just, because I haven't really announced it anywhere. I'm working on the little article I did an interview with a gentleman who bought Alleviate from a friend of ours at one of the markets here. And it's a cool story. Turns out he's a pretty epic runner. And I've been at the markets and I'll have a little sign that says runner's remedy, just trying to get some, feedback from athletes on my product. Cause I think it's very, very helpful for athletic recovery and performance. And somebody found us through another friend who bought some. He lives in Sydney. Turns out Ezra Dingo, his Instagram handle is Ezra.dingo. We're getting ready to sponsor him. We started already, but we're going to throw him some product and follow him through his come up as a top ultra runner. He's done some backyard ultras. And for those that don't know what those are, our good friend Jimmy from Mayoko Tallow put me onto this Barkley Marathon documentary. And
we watched that together and I was watching it thinking, who on earth would ever want to do this? But clearly I'm just a different type of human being. The people that do these and that's, a form of ultra running, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So typically ultras are maybe out and back or maybe one giant loop that can be anywhere, anything longer than a marathon.
Miles and miles. So because I don't know anything about this stuff. So what's a marathon typically in miles or kilometers and what's an ultra?
I don't know in kilometers. It's over 30K. I think it's 26.1 mile is a marathon.
Okay. Yeah.
Ultra is anything longer than that technically. You might want to call it ultra marathon because for instance, a backyard ultra is 4 or 5 mile loop. I don't know what that is in K. And you just run that over and over and over and over again. Wow.
Probably around 10 kilometers or just under maybe.
Yeah, probably 10K is closer to 5.5, 6 miles.
Yeah.
So someone like Ezra, he did a backyard ultra, which was originally a format started by, I forget the guy's full name. His name's Lazarus Lake, who started the Barkley Marathon in Tennessee in America. And it's multi-day thing. I think for his race, you don't actually know the full length. You just go out there and you have a certain number of loops that you're supposed to do. If you make it to the end, congratulations, you finished. And very rarely do people actually finish. In fact, this is the second year that nobody has finished in the past 2 years, the Barkley Marathon.
Wow.
So that same format was started, it's kind of like a backyard ultra. So you don't have to have access to hundreds of miles of terrain. You can just do it in, 4 or 5 mile loop. And so they do one down in Sydney. It's got an international following, the Sydney Backyard Ultra. I don't know all the details about it, but if you get on our newsletter on Natural Art Form, you'll eventually, when I get the article read out, you'll hear more of the details about what the Backyard Ultra is and how it's run and Ezra's experience doing it, which is, to me, fascinating. And it's just a peek into the mind of somebody that he's very unassuming. He seems pretty chill, pretty quiet, kind of has like a surfy
Yeah, he looks
vibe.
like a hippie surfer kind of guy.
Super nice guy, and is just interested in pushing himself. And also it's like it's just like a quest of sorts. It's not really punishing. People think if you're doing an ultra, you've got some kind of like S&M, like sadist or something part of you, but there's just something else to it. To me, it's a form of spiritual development as well. It can be very meditative. These people tend to be very, just tapped in with their body. I've done like 50K runs, and you do reach a little bit of an altered state of consciousness, you could say, where you reach a wall, you break through the wall, and then there's just this flow state afterwards. It's amazing. But anyways, so we're sponsoring Ezra Dingo with some Natural Art Form products, Alleviate, specifically for helping the body recover, and also to add some pre-race prep to something like an endurance event where you really need primarily, like, magnesium is one of the first things that goes when you start sweating and your body's exerting. It's an honor to be found by athletes like this and to receive recognition from them about what we're doing and feedback and how that fits into his training and recovery process. So,
yeah. I mean, that to me is the biggest form of flattery, is when someone doing that level of, physical exercise and athleticism, found us and is like, yeah, this stuff's amazing and it's actually helping me perform better. Because obviously we get feedback from people all the time that it's working for them, but it tends to be for people with like physical conditions where they're not as active. So, which is good in a way because they get to rest a little more and, the product works its magic. But for it to work that well when there's that much physical exertion, I'm just like, wow, it still blows my mind. Like, I know how amazing the product is, but it still blows my mind when we see how it's actually affecting people and helping them to improve their performance overall. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to put it in perspective, so a marathon, 26.5 miles, probably 30 something K, maybe 40. Ezra, his last backyard ultra, he ran over 360 kilometers.
Whoa.
And I think it took him it was over 50 hours of running.
That's like almost 3 days?
Yeah.
Straight.
Yeah. And
wow.
So the way it works, you run the loop and you have a specific amount of time you must run that loop in to stay in the running. So let's say it's an hour and you have to run that full loop in an hour. If you run that loop and you don't finish in the hour, you're out. And he was the last man standing in that last backyard ultra he did in Sydney.
Wow.
So everybody else had kind of dropped off, and it just keeps going until you decide to stop, or you're the last person still going. And you can keep going if you want, I guess. And you can set records and all that. That's extraordinary. Well done, Ezra. That's amazing. And if you want to follow his story, stay tuned with the newsletter, like I said before. So
yeah. So if you're not signed up to receive our emails yet, head to naturalartform.com. There'll be a pop-up. You can join the mailing list. And of course, if you want to buy any products for yourself as a listener, you'll always get 10% off using the code NaturalAF10 at naturalartform.com.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, with that said, you want to get into the episode.
Yeah, let's do it. So
what's the topic today?
Well, I'm going to say this is a story I've told so many times, but I don't think I've ever told it on the podcast. And it was a huge, this particular story, it was a huge life lesson for me. It was like one of those lessons that smacked me in the face. And I was like, okay, I get it now. But it was funny. It actually reminded something that we were speaking to Ollie Demigard about, reminded me of this story. And I can't remember what now. So that's what I got the idea for us to do this episode. And yeah, we're basically going to share some life lessons that we sort of learned through, direct experiences. In my case, it's actually a particular story and an experience I had. But, for you, I think you might share a few different things that led to a life lesson. So for me, we're going to rewind back to like 2014. So the story starts in, would have been like December, like late November, early December. I had gotten back in touch with a girl that I used to work with. And I actually hired her at this particular job, and we just got along like a house on fire, and we became really good friends. We would always go out together, and
Down to Sydney.
This was when I lived in Sydney. Yeah, this would have been my mid-20s. I think I was around 24 at this time, 24, 25. And we got back in touch because I stumbled upon her. She had a new business online, and I bought something from her. And when she sent it out, she sent me a handwritten note and gave me her phone number. She was like, oh, it'd be so good to reconnect. Reach out to me. So we got back in touch, and it was almost New Year's Eve, and we were talking about what we were doing. And she said, oh, we're going to Bali for a New Year's Eve party. And also, important part of the story too, her fiance at the time, I had actually introduced them on a night out, and then they ended up together. And at this point they were engaged to be married. And so I knew him through my best friend at school. It's actually her cousin. And I knew his sisters through her. We used to hang out together sometimes. So we had a lot of like him and his friends. We had a lot of mutual friends from around the area and the high schools and where we grew up. And so when she said there was this group of them going to Bali, she kind of invited me because some of his friends that I went to high school that were going. And she was like, oh, you should totally come. Like, we've got a villa. Just come along. We'll, pay a bit for the villa and just book your flight. And I was like, cool. I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm going to do it. So this is like I said, this would have been late. I actually think I booked my flight. It was early. We were already in December. It was early December. And I go pull out my passport, and my passport's expired, and I need to get a new one. Now, generally it's a 6-week minimum for you to go and like submit the paperwork, get your photo done, and get the passport back. So I'm at the post office getting my photos done, and the guy, I was like, I need this. My flight was leaving, I think, on the 27th of December. I was like, I need this by that date. And he's like, okay, that's fine. You just pay extra and you'll get it done in 2 weeks, and you can go. They'll let you know when it's ready, and you go and pick it up from the office in the city. I was like, sweet, done. I paid the extra. It was all good to go. So on Christmas, I received an email from them to say, I can't even remember what it said now, but it was from the office, the passport office. And so on Christmas Eve, I went, and I think I got the email probably the day before that. Christmas Eve, I went to pick up the passport because obviously Christmas time, everything's closed Christmas Day, everything's closed Boxing Day, and most government offices are closed for the following 2 weeks until they reopen in the new year. So I drive down to the city, I get to the passport office, take my ticket, I wait, I go up to the counter, I give him my name, he checks and he goes, oh no, it's not here. And I was like, what do you mean it's not here? He's like, it got posted out to you. And I was like, no. I was like, I've got to be on a flight in 3 days. And that's the other thing too, in the post around that time, things get delayed because of the public holidays. And
already I'm getting like anxiety. I'm just like, especially with a passport, it's a government document. I expect them to take triple the time that they would normally. I don't know, I find the government very inefficient sometimes. But
yeah, exactly. So I start freaking out a little bit. I go home. I'm kind of panicking. I don't know what to do. And so the next day, I remember we were at a family function for Christmas, and I was there like calling, because then I was like, I have to change my flight because I'm not going to I have to wait for it to come in the post. And I'm going to have to just rebook another flight. That was in the afternoon. I think I must have worked the day of Christmas Eve. So I'd gone to the office in the afternoon, and I probably could have called the airlines. I don't know if they run 24 hours, but I probably could have called them in the evening, but I just thought, oh, it's outside of business hours, I can't call. So the next day, it's Christmas Day, I'm calling the airline to say I need to rebook my flight. They go, oh, we're so sorry, it's within 48 hours. So you can't, you basically just have to forfeit the flight. Now at this point,
how much was the flight?
Oh, for us from Sydney to Bali is like $600-700 Australian, so maybe like $400-500 US for you. It's not a lot. That's return. Sorry, that's for a return flight. Was $600-700, and I just needed to change it once. So
round trip for those in the States.
Yeah. So at this point, my mum says to me, Lex, maybe you just shouldn't go. Maybe this is a sign that you shouldn't go. I was like, no, what are you talking about? Of course I'm going. I'd bought tickets to the New Year's Eve event, right? I told my friends that I was going. And there was just like no doubt in my mind that I was not going to make this trip. I was like, no. I remember like kind of snapping at her because I was like, no, what do you mean, blah, blah. And she was like, okay. And she just shut up after that. She didn't say anything. So I end up buying another flight for a different day. I think I ended up buying a new flight one way on the 29th. So 30th, 31st, I think it was the 29th. So I end up just buying a new flight. I had to forfeit the one I had bought there, and I get the passport on time. It comes, right. I think it came like the day before my flight. So then the day of my flight comes. I think I'd woken up late, and because for an international flight, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but you got to be there like 3 hours before because you have to go through security, like check your bags, go through security. Usually it's like a different section of the airport, the international flights. So I was running late. I think I must have slept in or something, and I wasn't finished packing. So I got up late. I'm still finishing packing, and I'm like racing out the door. My mum was like, aren't you ready to go? And I was like, no. Anyway, I get there an hour and a half before my flight departs, right? I know. Sorry. Now I'm getting anxiety thinking about it. So I get there an hour and a half before. I've got like half.
And you're flying by yourself. No one's flying, flying with your friends.
Totally by myself. No, totally. And I'm meeting them there, and they've got my flight details. But once I get there, I can't get in contact with them, right? Because I'm not going to have internet and whatever.
Yeah, you won't have a SIM card or.
Yeah, because back then too, like this is, like 15. Wait, what are we in now? 2026? No, this was.
Like a decade ago.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, about 10 years ago. Yeah, I feel like back then it could be different now, but I'm pretty sure like the Bali airport, the Indonesian airport, like there's no Wi-Fi. There was no Wi-Fi. There might be now. I haven't been there for a while, but yeah. So I'm completely by myself. I get there, so I've got half the amount of time that I need to get through the airport and get on my flight. I get there to check my bags, and my bags are overweight. Of course, 20-something-year-old girl.
Yeah,
it's me. And so they were like, look, just take some of the heaviest stuff you've got and put it in your carry-on is like the best option, right? So I'm frantically in the airport pulling stuff out of my suitcase and putting it in my carry-on. Now, the heaviest stuff, so the first thing I go for is my toiletry bag because that's all the heavy stuff in there is like bottles of things and whatever. So I'm like emptying things into my carry-on, right? So then I get the thing back on the scale. I can't remember if I ended up still paying for extra baggage. I think I might have, but I was like, whatever. It was a lower amount that I had to pay. And I was like, whatever. So check the bags finally. I go through security and my bags go through. They pull them aside and they say, you've got to take out all of the toiletries that had moved over. You can't take more than a 50 ml bottle in your carry-on. So they're like, these have to go. And any spray cans and I'm like, I'm stressing now, right? So I'm having to and I'm also I hate, it's funny. I was just reading up on my astrology. My second house is in Pisces. So I tend to have emotional attachments to my possessions, my material possessions. And it's not because I'm materialistic. It's because I have an emotional tie to it. And I'm laughing because even things like toiletries, I find it very difficult to part with my things, especially I'm also a Taurus sun. Taurians we like our things. And so I was just it was so hard, but I'm also stressing. So I'm just throwing things out and I'm inside, I'm just having this internal battle, what a waste. And I hate wasting things. And then they can see me, the security must be watching me and they can see I'm very panicked, right? So I throw these things out and then they've got to send the bag back through again. It's gone to the back of the line now. It's got to come through. So I'm standing there waiting, fretting, right? And they can see this. So when I finally get the bag and then I go through the checkpoint thing, what do they call it? Back then it was just the old school metal detectors. You just walk through them. One of the security guys pulls me aside. He's like, come aside, man, please. I'm just going to do explosives test on you. Fuck. I look like a terrorist that's got explosives on me. But anyway, obviously they're monitoring my behavior and I must have looked suspicious because I'm panicking, right? So then he pulls me aside to do the bomb test. So they do a little swab on your ankle or whatever, and then they run it through the machine. And I'm standing there and I'm like, I'm going to miss my flight if I don't go now. He's like, this will just take a minute. I remember I was like so panicked. I was probably shaking with anxiety. And I just remember being like, I was sweating and like so stressed. So this is now, I've got to say, this is past the boarding time. So boarding, they've already called boarding and it's like coming up to the departure time. And anyway, they finally get my things. My gate is like one of the furthest gates from where I am at the security checkpoint. So I'm now running through the airport, like running, carrying my cat, I had a handbag, a carry-on, and I'm running through the airport. I could hear them calling my name over the PA system. I've never had my name called at an airport before, but I could hear them calling my name and I'm running. So I finally get to the gate and they were just about to close the door. And I was like, I need to get on. She's like, oh, lucky, like we're just about to leave, whatever.
Oh my God.
So I finally get on the plane and I'm like literally like, like I've just run for my life through the friggin' airport. Honestly, I want to say it was like a couple of kilometers. Like it wasn't close by at all. So I finally get to my seat. I sit down and then I'm really embarrassed because I'm sitting on this plane and I'm like, like panting for trying to get air, right? And the lady next to me, God bless her, she said, I finally calmed down a bit. But she could see I was quite nervous still and she said, are you all right, darling? And I said, oh, I just almost missed my flight. I was running really late and blah, 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 blah. And I just remember she was so lovely. She just like talked to me. I actually want to cry because it was, you know, those moments where you interact with a stranger and they just like completely change your day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm getting my period soon, guys. I'm really emotional. But It was one of those moments where she just talked to me and I think like just having the conversation with me just grounded me because it just brought me to the present moment. And she was an older lady too, so much more wise than I was at the time. And yeah, she really like calmed me down. She was just talking to me and like, you know, just kept it really lighthearted and whatever. So anyway, I get the flight and then I've got to say and like I'm a really good flyer. I actually love flying and I love traveling. I started freaking out. So it wasn't until I was on the plane that I started thinking, what if something happens on this flight? What if they were all the signs? This is why I wasn't meant to be on this flight. What if the plane goes down? I start panicking. First time ever I've done that, right? And I start panicking. So we get up and then we're going. And then it was probably like, it's only I think about a 6-hour flight from Sydney. So a couple of hours in, I was good then. I was like, nah, it's fine. It's just, you know, everyday flight, whatever. So get there, find my friends. They're at the airport. We get there. It's all good. So then I'm there, right? And I'm just like, finally, I got here. We're going to have a good time. It's going to be a good trip. And I think I was only there for about probably less than a week by the time because I had to change the flight there. So we hang out. We're all catching up. The first night, I think we went out for dinner, whatever. And then the next day, yeah, because I arrived on the night of the 29th. The next day we hung out and I think we went out somewhere that night and then we go to the New Year's Eve party on the 31st. So it's all good. We're all getting along. The night of the New Year's Eve party, one of the guys there was a guy I went to high school with. He was a year or two above me and, you know, we were like flirting a little bit and whatever. Nothing had ever happened with us before that. But yeah, it had been years and he was also Egyptian and, you know, so we had this connection. Anyway, so I don't know what happened. I think we both just got drunk. Like I definitely got drunk and I don't know what happened, but him and I got into a massive fight, like yelling at each other, like to the point where they had to kind of separate us. And It didn't get physical, but it was very like, and like in retrospect, like in hindsight, it was definitely me instigating it, but I can't even really remember why. Like I couldn't even tell you why. Like I was just drunk and got something in my head and then I just was at him. And then he was kind of ignoring me and not really listening. And then I was just at him. And then he like exploded and then they separated us. So I completely ruined the night. And from that point on, the rest of the trip was very icy between us and then a little bit awkward for everyone else. Right?
Yeah, I bet it probably affected the whole vibe.
Yeah, 100% it did.
Were you guys staying like in like rooms, like just the whole villa? Like yeah, each person had a room in the same house?
Yeah, we each had a room. But I can't even remember because I think he ended up he ended up like just sleeping on the lounge after that. Maybe it was him and I that shared a room because we knew each other. But then he just like, and the first night was fine. And then, but after that, I think he just slept on the lounge and then I felt really bad. And I kept saying to him, no, so I actually did apologize. I can't remember if it was the next day or a couple of days later. And I actually went over and I was like, I'm really sorry. Like I was just really drunk. Like, I don't know. And I like genuinely apologized to him. And he was just so cold to me still. Like he didn't apologize for his part in it. And that's, I think, what made it so awkward too, because I'd like done my best to like rectify the situation so that we could just move on and like have a good trip. And he just didn't really accept it. So it was just me and my girlfriend, and the rest was her fiance and all the guys. So it was really just me and her after that. And then, so that happened basically the first night, and then I still had like 4 or 5 days with them. And then, and then the other thing that I really disliked about that trip, this is just like a personal preference, but when I travel, I want to eat the food of the people, like the culture that I'm in. Mm-hmm. That's the food that I want to eat. And like, I hadn't been to Bali since I was a kid. And I remember that first trip, like all we ate was nasi goreng, because that's like a very Indonesian meal. And I loved it. And that whole trip, I did not eat one nasi goreng, did not go to one Indonesian restaurant, because this group of people that I was with wanted to go to like all the Westerner restaurants. We went to I think the first time I've ever been to a Hard Rock Cafe was in Bali. We went to the Hard Rock Cafe. We went to like Jamie Oliver's Italian restaurant. We did have this like really nice Greek restaurant that we went to a few times. They did really good food, but also I'm like, I can get Greek food here in Australia like anytime, and I'm not in Greece. And so that was really shit. And the irony of that is that I went to all these Western restaurants and I ended up getting Bali belly. Again, first time ever. Every time I've traveled before that and since then, I've got a gut of iron.
For the Westerners, we don't have that term.
Oh, so Bali belly is just like gastro, like dysentery. Some people it's like both ends. For me, it was just like one end. I just could not stop going to the toilet.
Like food poisoning, but not food poisoning. But like, kind of like if you go to Mexico, potentially drink the water. Yes. Well, I think allegedly. It was after, because I've always just eaten, like I've been able to eat anything, but generally too, when you're eating at like places when you're eating at local restaurants in a different country, generally you're eating the food that they eat. So like you're pretty good usually. For me anyway, I can eat anything and I'm fine. I don't get sick or anything. But we're going to Western restaurants, so I'm ordering foods that I would normally order at home, but not in a third world country. So I'm ordering, like I ordered a salad. And then it wasn't until I got sick that someone said, oh no, you should never eat salad when you're in those countries because they wash the lettuce and the things in water. And that's the water you can get sick from. So that's probably what happens. And then I ended up for the last couple of days while we were there and the flight home. And when I got home, it was, so it would have been at least 3 days straight. Maybe 4, could not stop going to the toilet. It was literally like water. Every time I ate, I'd go to the toilet and I'd have like cramps and stuff. And obviously like for a prolonged period, that's not good because you lose like a lot of water and you're not hydrated and you can't keep much food down. So like you're very fatigued and stuff. But no like nausea and vomiting?
No, thank God. But so I remember like the flight, I never, again, like back then, I kind of only, took medication when I really needed to. And I remember, because some of the other guys had the same thing. And so I ended up taking like an anti-diarrhea medication because I was like, I can't do the flight, like constantly running to the toilet. Didn't really, like it helped, but not that much. I was still going to the toilet, just not as frequently. So then I got home and I remember actually taking a course of antibiotics because it had been days at that point and nothing was like helping. So I went to the doctor, took a course of antibiotics. I remember it was quite a strong course of antibiotics as well. And that was actually the last time I ever took antibiotics, which is funny too. That's just a funny part of the story. And I got home and...
Oh, sorry, before you move on from that.
Yeah.
This is the point in the episode where I want the audience to type in the comment your natural remedy for diarrhea like this. Bali belly cures, something. Because I just had that pop into my head because my dad grew up, no hospitals, dirt floor. And when they got stuff like that, this is like literally like in the 1930s. My dad, growing up, they would take a tablespoon of sugar and a tablespoon of salt in maybe 6 to 8 ounces of water, like less than 500 ml.
Yeah.
and then mix that up and then drink the sugar and salt water. And then that would actually interrupt that cycle of just diarrhea, vomiting, and you can use it for both diarrhea and vomiting. But what's your go-to cure for Bali belly? Because
I'd love to know.
I might need that at some point because we're probably going to go to Bali in the future.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, that was the last time I went to Bali. And after that trip, I was like, I'm never going again. Oh, and another point too, that was also part of why I didn't enjoy the trip. They had already booked the accommodation. I didn't really have a say in that. It was already booked. And it was in Kuta because it was near where the event was. It wasn't too far from there. Now, Kuta is one of the main cities in Bali, and it's not nice. Most people that go there, especially if they've been there more than once, will say Kuta is not nice because it's a city and it's a third world country and it's very busy and it's not a nice place. The villa was beautiful and you're in the four walls. It's you're in a little bubble, but once you step foot outside, it's just gross. So that was another reason that I was just didn't enjoy it as much because the last time we stayed in Bali when I was a kid was in Nusa Dua. I don't know what Nusa Dua is like now, but we were in a resort on the water. It was just much nicer. Anyway, so I got home from this trip. I had, Bali belly, so pretty severe case of Bali belly. I was taking these really high dose antibiotics. I'd basically kind of ruined this relationship, these relationships with not my girlfriend. She was fine, but we kind of did just, again, sort of naturally lose touch again over time after that trip. I think I caught up with her once in person after that trip. And so things were fine between her and I. But yeah, obviously I never spoke to that guy again that I went to high school with. And so for me, that was a huge, huge, huge lesson in listening to the universe when it's trying to tell you something, when it's speaking to you, when you're getting all these signs stop, go back. This, I remember this episode of, I think it was Charmed where, it was something like that because they're witches and she'd cast a spell about signs and that's literally she'd come to roadworks and she stops and then the sign changes to whatever it was saying to go this way and it's specifically for her. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of all these roadblocks kept popping up to be no, don't go on this trip, don't go. And I was so stubborn and bullheaded that I was no, of course I'm going. I was a 24-year-old girl that loved to party. And I was I'm going for New Year's. And it's going to be such a story. You know what I mean? It was and it was the worst trip ever. Worst international trip I've ever taken. Worst holiday I've ever had, hands down. Yeah. So that was the huge lesson for me. And, we talk about this a lot because we're a little different in the way that we approach, challenges, let's say. And not challenges because life is always going to present challenges and in the challenge is often an opportunity for growth, but roadblocks for me, when it's okay, one thing is okay, it's a challenge, we can we'll overcome it. But when it's at every step, it's a roadblock to me now after that experience, that is such a clear sign for me that I am not on the right path. Mm-hmm. For me, it's about being in a flow state, which is actually what I'm in at the moment, where the amount of synchronicities and things flowing to me, that's when I know I'm I'm on the right path. Whatever I'm doing, I'm getting confirmation from the universe that this is what I need to be doing. And Isaac's laughing because he's a bit different. He's just no, we just power through. We just keep going.
No, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
But I guess the struggle is how do you get through to somebody who's in their 20s? What? Yeah. Because the other thing that tipped me off that it was a universal, the universe was reaching out. There's maybe God's hand was giving you some messages to maybe delay the trip or not go or whatever. Mm. But when your mom noticed that and said that, and obviously if you're a parent, that sometimes talking to your young kids in their teens or 20s, it goes in one ear out the other. Pretty much anything you try to advise them on, it could be just not even getting below the surface. So what is there anything that anybody could have said or you would have said to yourself now going back then that would have actually made a difference, made you actually pause and think?
Not at that time, just because I had a very different worldview. Like this was a time of my life that I was still very heavy into partying and like abusing substances like alcohol and drugs. And like I was not in a good place. And this is the other thing. This was the lesson, right? I liked to be in control, right? And like there's a part of me now that does like that to a degree, but it's not to the degree that it used to be. And again, that's very common, and you hear this a lot, especially with people with certain types of addictions, is that your life is so out of control that you want to feel some semblance of control within yourself. So you try and control the external things. And that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was just like, I want to go on this trip and this is how it's going to be. And I'm like fully trying to control the experience. And so no, at that time, no. But I think because I was that way, I had to have that experience to learn the lesson. You know, we often talk about, and I've heard this explained so many different ways, but it's like, that's how the universe speaks to us. At first, it's like a little tap on the shoulder, you know, and then we don't listen. And then it's like a knock at the door, you know, and then it's just a full blown like slap in the face. And this was a big slap in the face for me. So yeah, look, I think for certain people, and again, because everyone's different, like some people, and as I've gotten older, I've definitely learned more from other people's experience where I'm like, okay, I've heard a lot of people speak about this in this way. I'm going to learn that lesson. Like I'm going to follow the lessons that they've learned. I don't need to have that direct experience. But depending on the person, depending on what it is that they're carrying, which, you know, when it's like ancestral, really deep stuff, sometimes they have to learn that, which we're going to go into with your lesson. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes they just have to have the experience to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And so potentially as well, like when we say the universe, like there's things we can't see, beings potentially, energies around us all the time, and potentially guides. I think that's a apt description for how this works. And we found out through Rachel Vaughn about how many guides you've got.
Yeah.
Apparently you need more.
Well, that's
for some reason. Like
I laughed so hard. So when I had a reading with Rachel Vaughn, that was my first reading with her. She was like, "You've got 150 guides," and I was like, "Wow, like that sounds like a lot." And she goes, "Well, just for reference, most people that I read for have about 7 to 8. They average 7 to 8 guides," and I was like, holy shit, like I need all the help I can get.
I wonder if maybe you started out with 7 to 8.
I just accumulated more because I was such a handful.
They
maybe.
Need more. They're like, guys, she's literally not going to make it. We need help.
Well, also, she also said that like what came through to her was that I've lived through 5 cycles. So this is like really esoteric, and there's different schools of thought around it. And Rachel's looked into a lot of them, and she's like, the best I can come to through like the information she's received from her guides as well as what she's researched is these 26,000 year cycles of the earth. And I've learned something similar through the Brahma Kumaris years ago. And so these 26,000 year cycles that earth goes through, which I don't know what they are, but it makes sense that it's some kind of cyclical thing that we go through. She said, and again, she said most of the clients I read for, about 95% at this point, have experienced 3 cycles, like lived through 3 cycles. You've lived through 5. So for me, it feels like maybe you accumulate guides as you go through more and more lifetimes. And yeah. And then I bumped into someone recently at a market, a beautiful woman who you'd also met at a different market, and she loves our products. And she also kind of channels and speaks light language, and really amazing woman. She actually said, we were having this conversation, and she also shared some information with me that really resonates. And she also said it's not just these beings that are here to support you, but they're also here to learn from us. So
they're all just watching you like,
holy shit.
No.
Yeah, but they're also here to learn from us and like the way we experience life. She didn't say this, but I dare say these beings are like non-human. They're beings of other species or forms or whatever. And I think they learn from us in the way that we live a human existence and this human experience. That's a really interesting aspect as well.
Yeah. I want to thank your guides and honor them for like helping, because I think they're helping expand whatever's going on in this soul journey. There's a lot of important things that have happened in our relationship and what's brought us together. And I feel like there's something, because that whole thing about when you experience roadblocks and challenges, yada, yada, potentially is the universe or God or your guides or whoever, showing you like, hey, maybe go this way or don't do that, pause, think, whatever.
Yeah.
There is a lot of big like trips, and then the need to pay for them from me coming to Australia to visit you for the first time. And I was shutting down one business and starting up another one and all this stuff simultaneously. And in order to facilitate this whole thing working, like traveling over here and all that, it's like, I'm pretty hardy. Like I'll go through and like, I'll get scuffed up by life and just keep going. But this time there was like, I felt like there was a lift. There was like ease to things that would just snap into place. And then I would see synchronicities and things that I thought might have been like signs. And
it's like what some people would call divine intervention, when it feels like there's some divine guidance that's happening. It's almost like all these doors just open. And like you said, it's an ease, it's an effortlessness.
Yeah.
And I'll let you finish
not
your
even
point.
effortlessness, but it's just when things go wrong, that's like a very apparent thing. Sometimes when there's like a little wind at your back pushing you forward, sometimes you can miss that almost. Like the painful lessons stand out more than the good little nudges forward. But I feel like whatever happened with us it made it clear enough that these good little nudges, I was paying attention to it. And sometimes that is because I've gone through those like smacks in the face over and over again. And now the good nudges maybe stand out more to me.
Yeah. And I love the point you just made about when things go wrong, because at this time of my life, when things went wrong, my mentality was, oh, why is this happening again? Why does this always happen to me? It was like very much that victim mentality. And I often think about this when that shifted for me. It was honestly not straight after, but in the years that followed that trip, that experience, that's when I started to shift into the mindset of, okay, why did this go wrong? Like, what's it trying to tell me, or what's the opportunity here to shift and do something different? And I think that's a huge lesson for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to not be, blown around like a leaf all the time, but you do want to kind of stay loose and have a bit of that flow state, which can feel like you don't have everything wired shut. So for people that like to have a lot of control, you have to learn to let go. And that sometimes is the most powerful thing you can do, which is undoing or not doing, or like, learning to create a little bit of a void to where the signals stand out. It's like at nighttime, when I was in the Army, if we were wearing night vision goggles and it was pitch black, no moonlight, you almost couldn't even see the trees with the night vision on. And then there could be like 5 miles that way, somebody lights a cigarette. And at that point, you just see this big flash and you're like, oh, they're right there.
Yeah.
So sometimes being in a bit of that darkness, a bit of that void, and not darkness per se, but like that's what happens in the stillness when you can actually connect and actually practice feeling stillness.
Yeah.
The more advanced you can get, it's like you can create and feel stillness no matter what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Even in the most chaotic, times. And then those little nudges are like, it just pops out a lot more.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm experiencing at the moment. So I won't get into this too much now, but that's exactly what I'm experiencing now in that letting go. Letting go is so fucking powerful for allowing things to come to you. That's when you are magnetic. That's when you start just naturally attracting the things that are right for you when you let go of control. And so, that's been a huge lesson for me, but it's not like I just never do that now. Like, of course. And I feel like, in the last sort of couple of years, especially in the last year and a half, more so, I think when it's come to like my business and the work that I'm doing, I've only just realized now in the letting go is that I've been trying to control like what I'm doing and what I should be doing. That's been a big thing. It's like, well, this is what I should be doing. Doing all the business coaching and following a formula and like doing all these things. And I literally said to you a few weeks ago, I think I'm just not going to pursue my business anymore. And not that I'm not going to pursue the work that I'm doing and just stop completely, because I have clients that I work with regularly and, you know, I'm always learning more, and I'm not going to stop doing that, but I'm not going to like chase it. That's what it felt like. I was like trying to pursue this thing. And as soon as I let go of that, that's what, ever since I said that to you, I said it out aloud, because again, I always say that on this show, and I bring it back to human design. Our throat is our manifestation center. Saying things, speaking them out is so important. You speak things into existence. And ever since I said that to you, and I just fully let go on an energetic level, I was just like, I really don't care what happens with it at this point. I've been attracting new clients. I've been having amazing clients with sessions and getting amazing testimonials. And, you know, all the synchronicities have been off the charts. And, you know, we've had a business opportunity presented to us that just came out of the blue. And so many things opened up. And this is exactly, I just got cold shivers actually. This is exactly what I'm talking about with when you start like listening to the universe. And it works both ways. And this is when you start seeing the confirmation the universe gives you when you're on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell mine real quick. So similar to yours, well,
yours is a few different stories.
So when it comes to life giving you nudges and telling you different things, it can be a bumpy road sometimes, and learning by failure is something that, I don't know, I think everybody does. I tend to do that more as like a default mechanism. So I'll skip to the lesson and then we'll Quentin Tarantino it and go backwards. But learn to have grace and understanding and like love for yourself despite the mistakes that you make. And that's kind of an obvious thing, but I think it's important to remind us, especially when you're going through it, or if you're looking back on things, when you have all these regrets, they can kind of weigh you down. So that's another really, really important thing to let go of, is all the regrets from all the mistakes that you made, because some of them can be quite serious and they can affect other people, and they can maybe create like a self-fulfilling prophecy that people will lock into. And I could very well be in that right now, where it's like, oh, you're just, you know, repeating the same mistakes, or you're rushing into this, or you're rushing. And I've had whispers of that, but it's like, this is a very different situation. And what I'm talking about is Alexa and my relationship. I've mentioned this before on the show. Like, I've been married a few times before, and that's a big thing right there. Like, a few times to get married to me is like, if somebody else in my past were to say that, like, oh, I've been married 3 times, whatever. I've known guys that were like that, and they tended to be kind of like chaos machines. People that just left a path of destruction through life, and they're just like, you know, cool to hang out with sometimes, but I also knew like, I definitely don't want to be like that guy, you know, and then I don't want to like listen to much of what that guy says, because he doesn't seem to have his shit together.
And I think most people though, I think it's very common, like most people would, if you said that, and I'm guilty of this in the past, is when someone says, I've been married 3 times or 4 times or 5 times, there's almost always an initial judgment about that person based on that.
Yeah, which is normal. Like, that's, you know, people say you shouldn't be prejudiced or you shouldn't judge. Well, you kind of need to. You need to have some prejudice. And prejudice just means prejudge. It's just a simple way of kind of shortening the learning curve. Like, you know, if somebody has neck tattoos and face tattoos, your initial instinct isn't just going to be like, oh yeah, I'll like let them borrow my car. You know, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that people with neck tattoos are all bad, but it's like, just to save time, let's prioritize people that don't have neck tattoos for people that you would loan your car to, right? So let's say somebody that's been married 3 times, they might have a lot to actually teach about or share about what not to do, which can be very valuable. And then sometimes that can lead to what you should do. And just from like that pattern looking back, like, this is very different for me, because especially moving here and doing the emotional work and spiritual work, as I've learned, when upsets come up, when I come up against, like, usually it's like an emotion or some kind of thing that triggers an emotion within me. That's just a sign that I have emotional work to do. And that's been something that I've learned since before we met, but it was a big part of it why, you know, this past relationship didn't work out. But it was a sign of like, I'm on a path and I'm actually open to doing the work, and I'm open to letting go of things. So one of the reasons why I think our relationship is so successful and the way that we know each other so deeply, part of that is because I think we have this soul alignment. So part of that is because we know that when we have those emotional upsets, it's like internal work that needs to happen. So my problem is not with you, even though sometimes if we're in an argument or something, it might feel that way in the moment.
Yeah, of course.
But we both know as a baseline for a relationship, when that happens, it's like, oh, that's something in me that needs to be actually healed.
Yeah.
That's a sign. That's like emotional work. And what triggered my actual, like really driving that lesson home was my previous relationship. All of them really, when I look back and see it. Mm-hmm. But I started realizing that these divorces, I was like, let's see, you've been married 3 times and other multiple like failed, quote unquote, failed relationships in between those marriages. The common denominator is me. So that's another big thing, is taking full ownership of that, total ownership. And that's challenging because it freaking hurts. It's humbling sometimes because it's like, I don't feel good. I want to outsource that. I want to blame somebody else because, it's easier actually to just be like, it's your fault. You're bad. You're making me mad, as opposed to I feel like really sensitive around that. And I need to learn and look into what it is. And can I release that? Is there something I can shift? Is there a subconscious belief running the show and making this feel worse than it is? And oftentimes that's what the case is. But ultimately, I found through all of this and through somebody that you introduced me to, our good friend Steve Lair, who we had on the show, talking about emotion code, especially that modality. Like it's somewhat similar to Psych K.
It's almost like a cross. I was just thinking it's almost like a cross between Psych K, family constellation, and like emotional or like EFT.
Yeah.
Not that there's any tapping involved, but you're releasing trapped emotions.
Yeah. And the first time I had a session with Steve, I don't know if I've ever shared this particular one on the show, but like it was very clear from that first instance that this involved my family line. So Steve, through muscle testing, he'll kind of ask questions and be like, all right, this trapped emotion, is it on the father's side, your mother's side? That's like where it starts. So right from the get-go, you know that this emotion, like if it's inherited, it's obviously coming from one of your parents and maybe from one of their parents. And then in that sort of dichotomy of like picking this side, that side, how many generations back, once we got to my great-great-grandmother on my father's side, Steve had a candle in the room with us, and he's got this really beautiful, it's like 10 or 12-sided
octagon. It's an octagon.
8-sided?
Yeah.
Okay, so an 8-sided little octagon building that he does his sessions in. And as soon as, and in the center of it is the desk and the chair where you sit, and he's got a candle on the table typically. And as soon as he found the lineage and how many generations back this particular trapped emotion was set, the candle blew out.
Wow.
And he kind of muscle tested and got confirmation that great-great-grandmother was actually spiritually in the presence with us.
Yeah.
And just to stand and bear witness, not to, there was no like seance, talking to or anything. It was just like, they're here. And he's like, they're here to support you and they're here to actually celebrate, because this energetic thing can last a long time. It can just stay in your family line, potentially, I don't know, going back hundreds of generations. I don't really know. We don't really know how far back this goes. But when you release this, it releases it for that person, for the people and everyone else pretty much born after that that's connected to them.
And after. The generations to come.
And then any kids that we have and all that, they're not going to inherit this same emotion. And what this has to do with relationships for me was, I'll go back to my second marriage. My second marriage was really quick. It was like a fiery relationship. At first, everything seemed really good. I met a beautiful woman. I met her at church, and I was going to a Christian church in North Carolina. I was in the Army. I just passed Special Forces selection. I felt like I was a solid guy with a good mind on my head, like good head on my shoulders. I was like, a bit, in my early 20s. I was 22 and, a bit rowdy, but I wasn't like one of these chaos machines. I didn't see myself as like one of these other guys that was all that I, didn't look down on, but I just wouldn't take relationship advice from them. Yeah. I thought I'd like scored a home run.
Yeah. But can I ask you quickly, do you look back on your life now and see how chaotic it actually was?
A little bit.
Like not in the same way as those men that you're talking about.
Yeah,
but
because I wasn't like into like heavy drugs. I mean, I did drink a bit, but I'd only been blackout drunk like a few times as opposed to like every weekend for years of my life.
But
like
the
some
reason
of my
I
friends
ask
were.
you that is because chaos can present in so many different ways. Like
Yeah.
people that are raised in a chaotic environment, it doesn't need to have anything to do with drugs or alcohol, but they can then attune to that throughout their life because that's what they're raised in.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at everything spaced out the way it was like I was very focused and diligent and intentional with brief moments of like what the fuck was that? Like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, surprising moments of what just happened. I grew up in a good family. Parents are still together. All my brothers are, well, all but one is in a relationship. They've been married like to one woman the whole time. Yeah. So, and then me, I'm like, couldn't seem to get it right per se, but I was like following my heart and felt like, yeah, God was with me, but there was either lessons I needed to learn or, as you'll see, like potentially something else deeper going on. So I'm in my 20s. I just passed Special Forces selection. I feel like, because I was so diligent, like I was like so committed and focused on this new identity that I was taking on and this new part of myself that I was unlocking.
And also, you've shared this story in greater depth on a previous episode, but you'd also just passed selection after failing the first time and then going through again and passing with 2 broken feet.
Yeah.
So you were feeling pretty on top of the world.
Yeah. I mean, it was humbling, but I was also feeling like, wow, I really can get through anything.
Yeah.
And I failed the first time, it was a lack of experience, and it just came down to like, they don't select everybody. You get maybe 40 people out of 400 that will try out in that particular class that'll actually get selected. So I was close. I made it all the way to the end. So anyway, so I felt like I'd learned a lot and I was ready to, go forward. But this relationship seemed really good, happened kind of quickly, got married. And then as soon as we got married, she turned,
And sorry,
it was a monster. It was like a monstrous situation.
Yeah. And just for the audience, like what's quickly, like how roughly from the time you met to the time you married, what was it?
Oh, it was maybe a couple of months.
That's very quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And now like part of it in my mind at the time was like, I found a great woman. I felt like, yep, I can see clearly. Like I see this person, she's a Christian, she's beautiful, whatever. We have this connection. And I was without my daughter in this training. And there was a brief period of time before I fully got into the Special Forces training course where you could actually get married. If you're in the Special Forces training course, I was told that you can't actually get married, which is smart because you got to focus on this 2-year, potentially like 1.5 2 years long training course where you do multiple different schools in one pipeline. So I just was decisive and was like, yep, let's just go for it. Get married. Then at some point, I can bring my daughter out here. I'll have a family. I'll have someone that can like look after her while I'm away at different training. So I feel like it was partially that, partially my religious programming / beliefs. Cause it wasn't just done to me. It was like, I actually really believe that, you should get married. If you're, sleeping with somebody, you should have a family. It should be for making a family.
Yeah.
And that relationship turned out to be pretty chaotic, violent, all kinds of.
She was physically violent.
She was physically violent. Yeah. I actually, as I was going into the medical portion of my training, I signed up to become an 18 Delta Special Forces medic and had learned how to do sutures and stuff. And luckily I did, because I actually had to suture my own face up twice. I sutured my lip up once. And I was actually able to show her how to do it because she threw something at my head, split the back of my head open. Wow. And she actually sewed it up for me. Instead of going to the ER and having them
because they're going to ask questions.
Do that and getting the cops involved and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just like that. It was like up and down, this like thing that I didn't understand. I was I was focused enough to finish selection with 2 broken feet and committed and dedicated to that. And I have my daughter at home. I was a single dad, now newly married, and trying to get my life on track, like trying to be good, trying to do the right thing. But just something was like, stuck on me, it seemed like. And then long story short, it lasts about 1.5 years before we separate. It eventually, I've told this story before. I leave the military, go back home. We divorce, less than 2 years being together.
Mm-hmm.
And then during that divorce process, my dad finally like actually opens up and tells me a little bit about the process that he went through with his first wife, which was shockingly similar, except he went and he was in that relationship for like 12 years.
Wow.
But similar things. His ex-wife had schizophrenia, bipolar, that kind of stuff, was very suspicious of him, would like accuse him of cheating on her all the time. And like, I imagine I imagine she may have been violent.
Well, and even if she wasn't, I find, look, this is very generally speaking, but women that are very mentally unstable can also be quite manipulative, and that's how they're abusive. It's through the manipulation of spouses, children, family members, and friends.
Yeah. And it can make it, it's like a living nightmare. 'Cause the way he described it was exactly how I felt every day. He's like, my dad told me like, every time I'd go home, I never knew what was going to happen. I never knew what it was going to be like when I got home, because she would be like throwing shit at me, or it would be happy, or she wouldn't be there, or like something, like who knows?
Yeah.
And I don't think she was involved in drugs or anything, but it was like the same level of like chaos as like somebody who was like a drug addict and all that. And it was like it was actually scary. There was times where like I go home and like, I don't know, just weird shit would occur to her to be like, oh, I'm going to pull his gun out of his safe and lay on the ground and pretend like I've been killed and put his gun in the house on the floor and cover myself in ketchup and leave the door slightly ajar, and I'll just see what he does. Like weird shit like that. I'm just like, this is not like normal human, whatever.
No. And just, sorry, speaking of that, I have to bring this up because she was a diagnosed schizophrenic when you were together, right? She was
diagnosed after we got married.
After. Okay, right.
After we got married.
And you just said like, this is not normal human behavior, because it's not normal human behavior. We spoke to Jerry Marzinski. If you haven't listened to that episode, guys, go back and listen to it. It's great. And that's what he found as a psychiatrist. He found that these schizophrenic patients of his basically had entities, these very dark entities attached to them. Mm-hmm. And that's what they do. They feed off the negative energy. So they literally implant thoughts into their brains and tell them to do things that no normal human being would ever do.
Yeah. And so that kind of haunted me in the back of my mind for a while. Like, in fact, I mean, I had a string of broken relationships after this relationship until I went to Israel, and it wasn't a exact same relationship, but I was in a relationship with somebody who did, was a little bit violent, like hit me a couple times. And it was just like, what the fuck? Like, how is this? And then I just stopped getting into relationships. I stopped dating. I stopped everything for like, I think 7 years.
Wow.
And we're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing something wrong. Like, stop, just stop.
Yeah.
And like, it still haunted me because I never actually dealt with anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just stopped. I was just like, I don't know what to do. And then I was just hoping it would just heal on its own. But anyway, so you can tell that my dad had a similar relationship that I was in. I have the belief now, like it's similar to what, in the Bible that talks about the sins of the father are passed down through generations. And sometimes like in the scripture, it talks about being passed down for 7 generations. Symbolically, the number 7 is actually, it just means all. So if the Bible might say 7 generations, I think it literally just means all generations.
Yeah, that makes more sense because there's a lot of different schools of thought that point to the seven, that number.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different things that reflects as well. There's, Steiner's 7-year cycles, and 7's actually a very spiritual number, which is interesting.
Yeah, and it could just mean 7 because I did go through I didn't get married 7 times, thank God, but I broke for 7 years before I got married again.
Yeah, no, but I do think it's the all. I think because I think we are literally infinite beings, right? Not our physical selves, but our soul, our spirit, our essence is eternal. And so I believe that that's like the microcosm of that is that when we heal on an energetic level in our physical bodies, I think it does go through all generations back and forth, not just 7. Because why just 7?
Yeah, I don't know. But so the point though is just to point people to, I guess specifically for people that feel like maybe they've been through a bunch of different relationships. Even if you didn't get married, maybe you just attracted the same kind of guy or the same kind of woman, or maybe they just, for one reason or another, the relationship never seems to work out. And for some families and some lineages, this might actually be hitting like an inflection point at some point, because it needs to be cleared. It needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Because it's just madness to keep passing that on generation to generation. Now, I don't know, like, is it definitive? Like, if we do the emotion code, is it actually cleared for all the generations going forward? I believe it is, if you do it properly.
I do. Yeah.
There might be multiple things, multiple types of emotions.
Yeah, there's layers
around the whole thing that you need to clear.
Yeah, there's definitely layers to it for sure. And I think it does definitely clear things, but that's also not to say that you can't have an experience following that you personally experience and trap the same emotion in regard to a similar situation. Like, that's also possible.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's, all rainbows and butterflies have cleared it. Like, we never have to worry about it again. Of course, there's a possibility that it could come up again. But I think when you're actually doing the work in those sessions, I'm with you. I 100% believe that it does clear it.
Yeah. And so this coincides with, I believe this is really smack dab in the middle of like my sole purpose, maybe even like a joint purpose that our relationship has, but it's stuff's falling on the roof.
It's gotten quite windy here.
Which I look, whenever that happens, as I'm saying something, it's like a confirmation.
Yeah.
It's like, boom.
I was just going to say, because I was like 100%. And then before I could say it, that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're on a purpose. We're on a mission with Natural AF. And it's creating a show where we're talking about these subjects that will help people reclaim their own independence and fuller health, more connection to themselves, more connection to nature, our most natural state of being. And what's more natural than trying to, like, for lack of a better word, undo all the crap in the past. And we have to do this collectively, because like I'm doing some of it, you're doing some of the work. I've had Steve do some work for my daughter who's doing, that's clearing work on the other side, on her mother's side.
Yeah.
And the more people we do this, there's like that 2 degrees of separation, or what's the degree?
6 degrees of
6
separation.
degrees?
Yeah.
So this 6 degrees of separation, if you get enough people all doing this work, and you think about all these lines, these tethers, these energetic things connecting people, if enough people do this over time, I think we can have this crazy like rebirth or like reset of our power to choose and manifest and have amazing things happen, amazing relationships come into our lives. And as a result of our relationships, children that are born, souls that are coming into this realm with their own higher purpose and their own divine path to then do even more and more things and greater things. And this is a part of all of this coming back to who we're meant to be and having grace and forgiveness, which is the essence of who God is, in my opinion, is that loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God who sees all this stuff and wants us to restore a relationship with him, her, it, us. This is like, as you can tell, like it's a lot more complicated, but also simple.
More complex. It's more complex, not complicated.
Yeah, okay. I can see the difference. Complex than maybe what it was when I was growing up in church, and it's just God the Father, and that's like the only way we're taught to express and explore this. We're connected to God the Father. There's a feminine aspect to it that is also within each of us. We have masculine and feminine parts or essences, and we're healing those, and we're looking at life and the shit we go through and the failed relationships or the failed businesses or the failed whatever, all those failures, all those things that we sometimes quietly judge ourselves on in a new light. And we're giving ourselves a little more leeway, a little more slack, just to be like, you can come back from that. You can change your future. You don't have to wear this like a yoke of shame for your entire life. And you can attract, a beautiful young woman who sees through all of that other stuff that's on the surface would be something that, anybody else would just judge you on and not take a second look.
Yeah.
But, you've got enough guides and they've they've put your heart at ease when meeting me. And
Well,
so I'm just very grateful that you could see through that. You could see through to my heart.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say. Like, from my perspective, it's like when you can see someone's heart, you can see them for who they truly are. The things that they've experienced, not that they don't mean anything, they don't define you. The things that you've experienced have shaped you into who you are based on the choices you've made, over time. Because obviously, at first, and I understood too, because I've been through my own shit, where I've been in some really dark places for like a lot of my life and made some really poor decisions and had some really bad experiences and came out the other side learning from them and, came out the other side better for it. I got to a point where, many years later, where I'm actually so grateful for those experiences. And I'm reading this book at the moment, which Isaac's probably sick of me talking about because I can't stop raving about it. I've almost finished it. It's called Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marciniak. Highly recommend it if you're interested in, it's very much on the topic of spiritual awakening, but really also just awakening to who you are, like as an individual, reading it, like who you truly are, which is a lot of what we talk about on this show. But yeah, on a spiritual level, but also who we are as humans. And it's a very powerful book. Highly, highly recommend it. And that's what I love about it. It's very empowering. It has a very empowering message. And that's one of the points that they constantly bring up is about not judging yourself for the experiences that you've had. We all do it. Like we all do it. And I think that's a big part of the reason we have trapped emotions and we have mental health issues and we potentially make bad choices or we stay in bad patterns of behavior because we're constantly judging ourselves for them instead of just, like you said, giving ourselves grace, accepting the experiences, learning from them and moving on and making better decisions moving forward.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note too, so I grew up with a Christian faith and I still have some of those faiths, some of those beliefs that I grew up with, but my awareness about things has expanded, which I think is the most natural thing. Nature expands, nature grows and it replenishes and it you burn a field down and grass grows back and trees become, so just reading one scripture and just only thinking in that framework is staying limited. And when you go outside the pages and you stop just looking at what's in black and white and you just look and see through conversations with other people, through your own experiences, there's much more. But the wind's blowing stuff around. The stuff that's in the Bible, I don't throw it out. It points to the truth and it has a lot of really good depth into it. Maybe we miss it. We read it with different eyes and something pops out at us.
You definitely need a lot of discernment with the Bible.
Yeah. With everything, like every text that you read or whatever, connect with that part of you that is designed to actually connect to the creator of this universe and find the answers directly from the source. So in the Christian belief, which is necessary, is forgiveness. And then we were taught to, take your sins, quote unquote, to the cross, leave them with Jesus. That's a very common way of explaining something, but that is so simple and it's not exactly it. You can just be like, I messed up, God. I got married to someone that I shouldn't have, whatever. And I'm sorry, please forgive me. He's like, cool. That doesn't mean that you just cleared all of that. That doesn't address the root thing. That has nothing to address the emotional trauma and probably physical trauma that my dad went through, either as a kid, which probably happened. Maybe his father went through something that traumatized him, which he passed on to his son, which he then was opened up to being in a relationship or even accepting the kind of terrible behavior that he was subject to because of all these other things. I see it as directly related. Now, you could say correlation is not causation. I'm not going to go there. I don't care. I say it's connected to it.
Absolutely. It's on an energetic level. That is what part of our genetic memory, people talk about genetics in terms of the physical DNA and physical illnesses and things like that. It's primarily our DNA carries genetic memory of it's all energy. So it's all energy, it's emotions, it's experiences, it's beliefs. It's all that stuff gets passed down.
Yeah. And trauma is is like shapes the polarity around things. And when you have polarity, plus or minus, we know that like with electricity, it's like a battery, plus and minus, that's the direction of the charge. That's like the direction of your behavior. So you're going to attract or repel things based on the polarities that you have energetically, which if you know anything about what we've talked about for the past couple of years or year or so on this podcast is, so thoughts are things, we can get that, people understand that. They also have polarities. And when you neutralize or you kind of dissipate some of the polarity, things stop being as triggering, but you also stop attracting certain things to you or repelling certain things from you.
Yeah.
And that is huge. If you slow that down, stop it, rewind it, listen to it again, you can start changing the outcome of your life and the lives of the generations after you by shifting or releasing the things that are no longer serving you, that are maybe attracting to you, that are causing problems in your life. And then likewise, you can shift the polarity around stuff you would like to have in your life, but seem to be chased away from you or seem to be repelled from you. It's like, why can't I have more money? Why can't I find a good relationship? Why? Well, if you look at it through this lens, those polarities are in essence defining your life. And I think there is a lot there to explore. So this is just my hat in the ring, just saying, look at it through those lenses, explore that for yourself. And I'd like to hear what you find.
Yeah. And I just want to make one more point, and this will be my last point because we've got to wrap up. But what you said about forgiveness, because this also relates to the last point I made. And this is one of the issues I have with religion, with a lot of, I don't know, I mean, I actually don't know what it's like in other religions, but definitely in the Christian faith, where you ask for forgiveness. You know, like you said, you either give it to the cross, like give it to Jesus, or you ask God. Like it's a very common thing, like you're asking God for forgiveness. And God is always forgiving, I believe. I don't believe in the Catholic belief of like, if you're bad, you're going to go to hell. And if God doesn't forgive you, you're going to go to hell. Don't believe in that at all. And I do believe that God is always going to forgive. It's where it's children. We all come from God. So of course he's going to love us unconditionally. And God can forgive you, but if you don't forgive yourself, that's where the problem lies. Because forgiveness, because that's the other thing, it's when it comes to like forgiving other people. I often say this, and this has come up with like clients and when I'm working with people as well. Forgiveness isn't for the other person. They can do a terrible thing, and you forgiving them doesn't change what they did. And it doesn't mean that you have to, bypass, like that's a very spiritual bypass here, like, oh, I forgive them and it's all okay. And, and then they just dismiss what they've done. It's like, what's that saying? Like forgive but never forget. I believe in that, because you can forgive someone for doing something terrible, but how they feel about themselves and what they did has nothing to do with your forgiveness. It might, like if you express to them that you've forgiven them, it might make them feel a little bit better. But ultimately that's for you. That's because you can then let it go. You can let go any anger or hurt or upset that's associated with what that person's done to you. And it's the same for yourself. If you can't forgive yourself for the things that you've done that you may have regretted, and also this whole thing around, live life with no regrets, to a point, but regret's also a little bit like shame and guilt. There's a healthy aspect of that is like an indicator that, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or like, that was a really poor decision. So it's an indicator. So use it as that. Don't get stuck in it. And I think that it's so important to forgive yourself, because then you can release those things and you don't carry that regret. You don't carry the shame. You don't carry the guilt of doing those things. And that's when I think exactly what you were talking about is when you can really flourish and thrive, because you're no longer carrying all this baggage, whether it's from your personal experience or through your lineage.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, this has been a longer one, guys. I think there's a lot of nuggets of gold in here. I actually love this conversation. I love, it's always good to tell a story. I think people like to hear stories, and especially when there's a lesson behind it. I know I've definitely learned lots of lessons from other people's stories. So I hope people got a lot out of this.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking around. If you'd like to support this show, go to naturalartform.com. That's the business that we run together. And give your body some forgiveness for lifting things that are really heavy. And that's what I do. I forgive myself every time I anoint my arms with Alleviate. My muscles feel better. My joints are healthier. And that supports our show, supports our family. And we thank you all for your time and for supporting us.
Yeah. And also another way you can support us is head to our link tree. The link's in the show notes. And if you have a look at our affiliates, we've got affiliate discount codes for Remedy Collective, so homeopathics and kits and accessories. We've had Melissa Kupch from Remedy on our show, Nigel Dixon from Primal Kiwi we've also had on the show, and they've got an amazing range of, what would you call them? I don't want to call them supplements because they're real animal-derived products.
Things like, so we got bee pollen, you got beef brain, which I like to use quite often, collagen.
Yeah, so animal-based.
Tallow capsules, which are great.
Yeah, so animal-based products are just amazing to support your health. And also we've got Ollie Demigard's retreat coming up in Bali. We've got a code for that. If you're interested in heading to that, you'll find the link for that there. So
I think they're almost sold out.
Yes,
but if you're able to go, it's going to be like a core memory will be made for everyone that goes.
Yeah. So head to our link tree and check those out. That's another way you can support us. And we will see you on the next episode.
See you later, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Natural AF podcast, where we explore holistic healing modalities, mindsets, and methods that reconnect us to nature and our natural state of being.
If something resonated, share this episode and see the show notes for our guest links, as well as all of our discount codes for our aligned affiliates and Natural Art Form, where we handcraft a range of organic, natural remedies to help support your body's natural healing abilities and help support the show.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please take a few seconds to leave us a rating and review. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, hit the like button and drop us a comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for the latest updates.
We're not here to conform, we're here to remember what's real. So step into your power, be curious, and be natural AF.